The diplomatic revelation. Commander Eliza Chen adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform as she gazed out the viewport of the Earth vessel Tenacity. The massive structure of Nexus Station loomed ahead, a marvel of engineering that resembled a gleaming metallic flower blooming in the void of space. Its petals, enormous habitat modules each hosting different atmospheric conditions, rotated gently around a crystalline central hub. "Quite the sight, isn't it?" remarked Dr. Marcus Torres, Earth's chief xenobiologist, as he joined her at the viewport. His dark eyes reflected the station's distant lights. "Hard to believe we weren't even aware any of this existed just 7 years ago." Eliza nodded, her expression carefully neutral despite the anxiety churning in her stomach. 7 years since first contact, and they still treat us like children who wandered into the adults' conversation. Well, compared to the Viridian Convergence with their 12,000 years of interstellar history, we practically are children, Marcus replied with a wry smile. "Commander Chen," called Communications Officer Zhang from her station, "we're receiving docking instructions from Nexus Control. They've assigned us to the auxiliary diplomatic bay." Again. Eliza suppressed a sigh. The auxiliary bays were smaller, farther from the central chambers, and typically reserved for minor delegations or newly contacted species. It was a subtle but clear message about Earth's perceived importance in the grand galactic hierarchy. "Acknowledged, Officer Zhang. Proceed with docking procedures." Eliza turned to her second-in-command, Major David Queasy. "Major, please ensure our security protocols are in place. Standard observation pattern Delta." "Yes, Commander," David replied, his voice low. "Though I still think we should implement Protocol Omega given the intelligence we received about Craxthy movements near our colony worlds." "Noted, but not yet," Eliza said firmly. "We don't want to appear overly paranoid or aggressive. That's exactly the image they expect from us." As the Tenacity glided toward its designated docking port, Eliza's mind raced through the briefing materials she had memorized. This quarterly galactic assembly was particularly critical. Resource allocation for the Perseus arm sectors was on the agenda, sectors that included Earth's first extrasolar colony, New Horizon. If the allocation didn't go in their favor, humanity's expansion efforts would be severely hampered. The docking procedure completed with a gentle shudder through the ship's hull. Eliza gathered her delegation: Dr. Torres, Major Queasy, Officer Zhang, and Dr. Amara Singh, Earth's foremost expert on interspecies law. Together, they represented the best humanity had to offer: brilliant, adaptable, and far more prepared than any of the other species suspected. "Remember," Eliza said as they approached the airlock, "we observe Protocol Epsilon until otherwise indicated. We are here to learn, to cooperate, and to secure our interests through diplomatic means." Her team nodded in understanding. Protocol Epsilon: appear deferential, gather information, reveal nothing crucial. The airlock cycled open to reveal 2 Liridian escorts waiting for them. The amphibious beings stood nearly 7 feet tall, their scaled skin shimmering with iridescent blues and greens in the station's artificial light. Their large, pupil-less eyes regarded the humans with what Eliza had learned to interpret as barely concealed disdain. "Representatives of Earth," the taller Liridian gurgled through its translator device, "we welcome you to Nexus Station for the 347th Quarterly Assembly of the Galactic Concord. We are honored to attend," Eliza replied with the formal gesture of respect, right hand placed flat against the center of her chest. "The assembly convenes in 3 standard hours," the second Liridian informed them. "You have been allocated temporary quarters in Sector 7, compatible with your atmospheric requirements. Please follow." As they traversed the station's gleaming corridors, Eliza observed the numerous species moving about their business. Some she recognized immediately: the crystalline Thalaxians with their geometric bodies refracting light into dazzling patterns, the gaseous Voth contained within their heavily engineered environmental suits, the insectoid Craxthy with their chitinous exoskeletons clicking against the floor panels. Others were new to her, evidence of just how vast the galactic community truly was. Their quarters were utilitarian but comfortable, designed to accommodate human biological needs. As soon as the Luridian escorts departed, Major Quasi activated their security protocols, sweeping the rooms for surveillance devices. 3 standard listening devices, he reported after a few minutes, all known models used by the Luridians. Nothing unexpected. Leave them, Eliza instructed, but activate our privacy field for this discussion. Major Quasi nodded and tapped a sequence into his wrist device. A barely perceptible hum filled the room as their counter-surveillance technology engaged, creating a bubble within which they could speak freely. The Hraxthi delegation arrived early, Dr. Singh reported, reviewing data on her tablet. They've already held private meetings with the Viridian Convergence and the Thalaxian Confederation. Eliza frowned. That's concerning. The Hraxthi have been pushing for exclusive mining rights in the Perseus Arm. If they've secured support from the Viridians and Thalaxians, we'd be outvoted, Dr. Torres finished grimly. New Horizon would be surrounded by Hraxthi mining operations. And we all know how carefully the Hraxthi respect territorial boundaries, Major Quasi added sarcastically. Eliza paced the room, considering their options. We need to fracture that coalition before the vote. Dr. Singh, what leverage do we have with the Thalaxians? Very little diplomatically, Amara admitted, but they are pragmatists above all else. If they believed aligning with the Hraxthi posed a greater risk than supporting us, then we need to change their risk assessment, Eliza concluded. She stopped pacing and faced her team. I think it's time we considered implementing Protocol Sigma. A heavy silence fell over the room. Protocol Sigma was a dramatic departure from Earth's carefully cultivated image of the deferential newcomer. Are you certain, Commander? Major Quasi asked, his expression serious. Once implemented, there's no going back. The perception of humanity will be permanently altered. 7 years of playing the humble student has gotten us nowhere, Eliza replied firmly. We're still allocated to auxiliary docking bays, still patronized in assembly sessions, still finding our interests at the bottom of every priority list. She looked at each member of her team. Earth Central Command authorized Protocol Sigma at my discretion. I believe the time has come. 3 hours later, the Earth delegation entered the vast assembly chamber. The architectural marvel soared hundreds of meters overhead, its transparent dome revealing the star-speckled blackness of space beyond. Tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle surrounded a central speaking platform, where a Viridian representative currently addressed the gathering. Eliza noted with satisfaction that their entrance had not gone unnoticed. Several delegates turned to observe the humans, their expressions, those that could be interpreted, ranging from curiosity to dismissal. The Earth delegation took their assigned seats, positioned in the outermost tier among the newer and less influential members of the Concord. The Viridian speaker, Ambassador Threll, was arguing passionately for increased convergence presence in the Perseus Arm. As the most experienced spacefaring civilization present, the Viridian Convergence has the infrastructure and expertise to efficiently extract and distribute the resources of these contested sectors. Our proposal would ensure equitable allocation among all Concord members. Eliza recognized the diplomatic language for what it was, a thinly veiled power grab that would give the Viridians control over resource distribution, allowing them to favor their allies and pressure their opponents. The massive form of a Hraxthi representative rose next, its chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. The Hraxthi Dominion supports the Viridian proposal, it clicked through its translator. However, we propose a joint administrative council composed of Viridian, Hraxthi, and Thalaxian representatives to oversee the extraction operations. Exactly as they had predicted, the 3 most powerful factions forming an alliance that would effectively control the Perseus Arm, and by extension, humanity's expansion prospects. The facilitator, a gaseous Voth floating serenely in a containment field, acknowledged the Hraxthi statement. The joint proposal has been noted. Are there other representations before we move to preliminary voting? Eliza stood. The Earth delegation requests recognition. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Earth rarely spoke during these proceedings, generally content to observe and occasionally vote with the majority. The representative from Earth is recognized, the VOTH facilitator confirmed. Eliza moved to the central platform, acutely aware of the hundreds of alien eyes fixed upon her. She projected calm confidence as she addressed the assembly. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Concord, Earth thanks you for this recognition. While we acknowledge the experience and capabilities of the Viridian Convergence, the Hraxthi Dominion, and the Thalaxian Confederation, we must respectfully oppose the joint proposal regarding the Perseus arm sectors. Ambassador Threll's translucent appendages rippled with what Eliza knew was irritation. On what grounds does Earth, with its limited interstellar experience, oppose this reasonable arrangement? On the grounds that it directly impacts our colony world of New Horizon, which falls within the disputed sectors, Eliza replied evenly. Earth proposes instead a collaborative approach involving all species with interests in the region, with resource allocation determined by proximity and need rather than extraction capability. The Hraxthi representative's antennae twitched aggressively. The human proposal is inefficient and impractical. Your species barely understands the technologies involved in deep space resource extraction. Your colony world is a rudimentary outpost that would be better served under the protection of more established powers. Eliza had anticipated this line of argument. It was time to implement Protocol Sigma. I understand how our proposal might seem inefficient from your perspective, she began, her tone conversational. Humanity is indeed new to interstellar travel and diplomacy. However, there is one area where we have developed quite sophisticated expertise. She paused, ensuring she had the full attention of the assembly. Contingency planning. A confused murmur spread through the chamber. To clarify, Eliza continued calmly, Earth has developed detailed contingency plans for potential conflicts with every species represented in this assembly. These plans include comprehensive analyses of physiological vulnerabilities, technological weaknesses, and strategic pressure points specific to each civilization. The chamber fell utterly silent. For instance, she continued, turning slightly toward the Hraxthi representative. Our analysts have identified 17 distinct vulnerabilities in Hraxthi exoskeleton composition, particularly during molting periods. We've also mapped the complete communication relay network that coordinates your hive centers across your territory. Very interesting architecture, though notably susceptible to targeted electromagnetic disruption. The Hraxthi's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Eliza recognized as alarm. She turned toward the Viridian delegation. As for the Viridian Convergence, we've cataloged the precise resonance frequencies that destabilize your crystalline neural networks. We've also identified the 3 primary supply chains that your core worlds depend on for essential nutrients. Fascinating how centralized your distribution systems are. Ambassador Thrall's translucent body had gone completely still, a sign of shock in Viridian body language. I could continue, Eliza said to the silent chamber, but I believe I've made my point. Earth does not threaten any member of this Concord. We seek peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit. But we will protect our interests, and we are far better prepared to do so than our technological development might suggest. The VOTH facilitator's containment field pulsed with agitation. Representative Chen, your statements could be interpreted as threatening the assembly. Not at all, Eliza replied smoothly. I'm simply being transparent about Earth's approach to interstellar relations. We hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. It's a survival trait our species developed on a particularly challenging homeworld. She returned to her seat amid stunned silence. Major Queasy gave her a subtle nod of approval, while Dr. Torres looked both impressed and slightly terrified. The assembly facilitator, clearly flustered, called for an immediate recess. As delegates hurriedly conferred with each other, many casting wary glances toward the Earth delegation, Dr. Singh leaned toward Eliza. Protocol Sigma is officially implemented, she whispered. For better or worse, everything changes now. Eliza watched the chaos unfolding around the chamber and allowed herself a small smile. Yes, she agreed. Everything changes now. The game changer. The diplomatic quarter of Nexus Station hadn't seen such frantic activity in decades. In the 3 hours since Commander Chen's revelation, delegations had been rushing between private meeting rooms, secure communication chambers, and their vessels. Security personnel from various species had doubled around their respective diplomatic quarters, eyeing human crew members with new wariness. Inside Earth's temporary quarters, Eliza sat calmly reviewing reports as her team monitored the station's communication channels. The HFY have sent 16 encrypted transmissions to their home cluster, Officer Jang reported. They've also canceled their scheduled meeting with the Luridian delegation. The Viridians have recalled their science vessel from near Saturn, added Major Queasy. Apparently, they no longer feel their research mission is prudent. Eliza nodded, unsurprised. And the Thalaxians. That's interesting, Dr. Torres said, looking up from his datapad. They've requested a private audience with you, Commander. Just you, no other members of our delegation. Their representative will come here rather than meeting on neutral ground. Now that is unexpected, Eliza mused. The crystalline Thalaxians were notoriously reclusive, preferring to communicate through intermediaries rather than direct meetings. When? 20 minutes from now. Accept the request, Eliza decided. Major Quasi, standard security protocols. Dr. Singh, I want you monitoring from the adjacent room. This could be an opportunity. As her team prepared, Eliza took a moment to center herself. Protocol Sigma had been years in the making, a calculated risk developed by Earth Central Command after their initial assessment of galactic politics. For 7 years, humanity had played the role of the deferential newcomer while quietly gathering intelligence on every species they encountered. The true extent of Earth's preparations would have shocked even the most paranoid alien civilizations. Every human diplomatic vessel contained sealed contingency files with detailed vulnerability analyses. Every colony had hidden defensive capabilities that didn't appear on official scans. Earth's apparent technological limitations were, in many cases, carefully constructed facades. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Thalaxian representative. Major Quasi confirmed security measures were in place before admitting their visitor. The Thalaxian who entered was smaller than most of its kind, approximately human-sized rather than the towering 3-meter height typical of their species. Its crystalline body refracted the room's lighting into shimmering patterns across the walls. Where most Thalaxians were transparent or blue-tinted, this one had a distinct violet hue that Eliza knew marked it as a member of their ruling consensus. Commander Chen, the Thalaxian greeted her, its voice emerging from a small translation device at what might be considered its chest. I am Facet Trinium, third resonance of the Thalaxian Confederation. Eliza bowed slightly, the appropriate gesture of respect for a high-ranking Thalaxian. Facet Trinium, you honor us with your presence. How may I assist the third resonance? The crystalline being moved to the center of the room, its movements fluid despite its seemingly rigid structure. Your revelation in the assembly was illuminating, Commander. The Thalaxian Confederation is curious about several aspects of your statement. I'm happy to clarify where I can, Eliza replied carefully. You spoke of contingency plans for every species present. Trinium said, its facets shifting slightly in what Eliza had learned to interpret as focused attention. The Thalaxian Confederation has existed for 9,000 years. In that time, we have encountered 417 distinct spacefaring civilizations. None, not even the ancient Viridians, have claimed to possess such comprehensive strategic preparations. Different evolutionary paths lead to different priorities, Eliza explained. Humans evolved on a particularly dangerous world where threat assessment became instinctual. When we encounter something new, we automatically analyze how to defend against it should the need arise. Yet your species has been interstellar for less than 20 years, and in contact with the Concord for only 7, Trinium pointed out. The depth of analysis you implied would require extraordinary intelligence-gathering capabilities. Eliza smiled slightly. Or perhaps extraordinary observational skills coupled with a talent for recognizing patterns. We found that most species reveal far more than they realize through routine interactions. The Thalaxian was silent for a moment, its crystalline structure pulsing with subtle light, their equivalent of contemplation. You mentioned the resonance frequencies that could destabilize Viridian neural networks. Trinium said finally. This is information the Viridians guard zealously. Even the Thalaxian Confederation, their oldest ally, is not privy to such details. Perhaps they should be more careful about the harmonic emissions from their communication devices, Eliza suggested. Our scientists noticed the correlation between certain frequencies and Viridian discomfort during the third diplomatic exchange on Mars. Another long silence followed. Eliza waited patiently, knowing that rushing a Thalaxian's thought process was considered deeply offensive. I have been authorized to ask, Trinium finally said, what contingencies Earth has developed regarding the Thalaxian Confederation. A direct question, unexpected, and potentially dangerous to answer. Eliza considered her options carefully before responding. I respect your directness, Facet Trinium. While I cannot share specific details of classified security protocols, I can acknowledge that we've studied the unique properties of Thalaxian crystalline structures, particularly their response to specific sonic wavelengths and thermal variations. The Thalaxians' light patterns flickered rapidly, a sign of surprise or concern. Most species believe our composition makes us nearly invulnerable. Most species don't think creatively enough, Eliza replied simply. Before Trinium could respond, Major Queasy's voice came urgently through Eliza's earpiece. Commander, we have a situation. Multiple Praxthi vessels have broken formation around the station. They're moving toward our docking bay. Eliza maintained her composed expression despite the alarm bells ringing in her mind. Face it, Trinium. I apologize, but a matter requires my immediate attention. Would you excuse me momentarily? The Thalaxian inclined its crystalline body. Of course, Commander. Eliza stepped into the adjacent room where her team was monitoring the situation. The display showed 3 Praxthi interceptors approaching the Earth vessel Tenacity. They'd bypassed station traffic control protocols, Officer Jang reported. Station security is scrambling to respond, but the Praxthi vessels will reach our ship before they can intervene. It seems the Praxthi have decided we represent too great a potential threat, Dr. Singh observed grimly. Eliza nodded. They're testing whether our contingency planning extends to practical defensive capabilities. Major Quasi, implement Protocol Omega. Authorization, Chen Gamma 73. Major Quasi immediately opened a secure channel to the Tenacity. Captain Reed, Protocol Omega is authorized. Confirmation code, Chen Gamma 73. On the display, the Tenacity remained seemingly dormant as the Praxthi vessels closed in. Then, without warning, dozens of small objects detached from concealed compartments along the Earth ship's hull. These devices, officially listed in ship schematics as atmospheric sampling probes, rapidly surrounded the approaching Praxthi vessels. What are those? Dr. Torres asked, leaning forward. Electromagnetic pulse generators, Major Quasi explained, specifically calibrated to the frequency range used by Praxthi neural command systems. On the screen, the Praxthi vessels suddenly slowed, their approach becoming erratic. Station communications erupted with confused chatter as the interceptors began drifting off course, their systems clearly compromised. They're experiencing complete navigation and weapons system failure, Officer Jang reported, monitoring the communications. No permanent damage to life support or crew, but their vessels are effectively neutralized. Eliza turned to find Facet Trinium standing in the doorway, its crystalline form pulsing with what she recognized as the Thalaxian equivalent of astonishment. You anticipated this response, the Thalaxian observed. Of course, Eliza replied. The Praxthi value decisiveness and show of force. Their psychological profile indicated a 78% probability they would attempt to neutralize a newly perceived threat rather than reassess diplomatic options. Trinium's facets shifted in a pattern Eliza hadn't seen before. "The Thalaxian Confederation has misunderstood humanity," it said finally. "We perceived technological limitation. We failed to recognize strategic depth." Eliza smiled slightly. "A common misconception. Humanity's greatest advantage has never been our technology, but our perspective. We've spent thousands of years fighting each other on a single planet. We've had plenty of practice thinking about how to overcome adversaries with superior resources or capabilities." Station security vessels were now surrounding the disabled Galaxy interceptors, escorting them to containment docks. The station's general communication channel announced an emergency session of the Assembly to address the unprovoked aggression of the Galaxy Dominion. "I must return to my delegation," Trinium said. "But before I go, Commander Chen, I believe you should know that the Thalaxian Confederation will be reconsidering its position on the Perseus arm allocation." "I appreciate your candor," facet Trinium. After the Thalaxian departed, Eliza's team gathered around her. "That went better than expected," Dr. Singh said, unable to keep a note of amazement from her voice. "The Galaxy have effectively isolated themselves diplomatically with that failed attack. And the Thalaxians appear to be reassessing their alliance with the Viridians," Dr. Torres added. "One strategic revelation and a defensive demonstration has accomplished more than 7 years of conventional diplomacy." Eliza nodded, but her expression remained serious. "This is only the beginning. We've changed the game, but now we need to establish the new rules of play. Major Queasy, inform Earth Central Command that Protocol Sigma has been successfully implemented and request updated diplomatic parameters." 2 days later, the Galactic Assembly reconvened. The Chamber's arrangement had subtly shifted. Earth's delegation, previously relegated to the outermost tier, had been moved to a middle position, a tacit acknowledgement of their newly perceived importance. The Galaxy representatives were conspicuously absent, having been temporarily suspended from assembly participation following their unauthorized aggression. The Viridian delegation, led by Ambassador Threll, appeared subdued, their normally luminescent bodies dimmed in what xenopsychologists recognized as defensive posturing. When the vote for Perseus Arn resource allocation came, the results stunned many of the elder species. Earth's proposal for collaborative management passed with a narrow majority, supported by the Thalaxian Confederation and several mid-tier civilizations that had previously followed the Viridian lead. As the session concluded, Ambassador Threll approached Eliza in the diplomatic anteroom. "Commander Chen," the Viridian's translator rendered its harmonic speech into English, "the convergence acknowledges Earth's unexpected capabilities. We would be interested in establishing more direct lines of communication between our species." Eliza inclined her head respectfully. "The Viridian convergence's experience and wisdom would be valuable to humanity. We welcome closer dialogue." After the Viridian departed, Dr. Torres joined her. "They're afraid of us now," he observed quietly. "Not afraid," Eliza corrected. "Respectful. There's a crucial difference." She gazed around the anteroom, where various delegations were engaged in animated discussions, many glancing toward the humans with new interest. "Respect we can build upon. Fear would only lead to more situations like the Galaxy response." "What happens now?" Dr. Torres asked. Commander Eliza Chen watched as Facet Trinium approached them, accompanied by representatives from 3 other species that had previously ignored Earth's delegation entirely. "Now," she said with quiet satisfaction, "we finally get a seat at the table."